Nick, it's really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It was great to speak on the phone and to hear a little bit about you. How did you find the place?
It was pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to, actually, when I was younger, I used to work at the deli right down the street.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't been back this way in a while, but, it calls up a lot of memories.
Old memories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I know we really didn't get a chance to speak on the phone about what brings you in, but before we talk about that, I just want to say that everything that we talk about here is confidential, and I really want this to be a space where you feel open to discussing anything and feel safe. There are some limitations to the confidentiality of our relationship. If I feel like you're a harm to yourself or to anyone else, legally I am required to take steps to make sure that no harm is done.
Mm-hmm.
And we can talk about this more at the end. I have some paperwork that we'll need to go over. Is this your first time coming to counseling?
It's my first time coming to counseling in, you might say, the therapeutic sense. I mean, I went through pastoral counseling.
While you were getting your own training?
Earlier in my own training and career, but in terms of a kind of secular context, this is my first time. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to ask me now about the process? Or I'll say that, so in this first session, what I'm really trying to do is to get an impression of the problem that brings you here, a little bit of your history, get to know a little bit about your family and any other factors that you think might be relevant to what we're talking about. I'll be taking some notes. If it is the case that there's anything that you don't want me to write down, just let me know, and that's certainly fine. But then towards the end of the session, if it feels like you want to continue talking, we can begin. We can take a few moments to talk about what goals we might set and how we might proceed with them.
Yeah.
That would be the overall sort of framework
I understand.
Our time today.
Yeah.
So
I guess what's strange for me coming here is that whenever I've had struggles in the past, those are things that I was always raised to and always did try to resolve through the church, through the faith community.
And have you always been Baptist?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were raised in the Baptist church?
Yeah, okay. Me and my 3 brothers.
Yeah. Here in Georgia or elsewhere?
Yeah, just a little south of the city.
Okay.
But the reason that I'm not doing that now, the way I've always dealt with things, is that I have lost my faith.
Wow.
And it's so strange because I think that people tend to go through that period, especially when they're adolescents or maybe in their 20s, when they're figuring out their worldview and their values.
A period of doubt?
Yeah.
Or a period of sort of unbelief?
Yeah, and that was something I never really went through. And now I am. And but it's not just it doesn't feel like a period of doubt. It feels more like I don't want to say certainty because I don't presume to, have those kind of answers to great questions, these great big questions. But
But it feels like a conclusion.
yeah, it feels like something settled.
Yeah.
And it's not what I want to believe, but it's what I can't help but believe. And so, at a personal level, it's one thing. It's difficult in that sense. Um, you know, uh, Realizing or coming to believe that my whole identity, the way I was brought up by my parents and with my family and now the family I have raised and is still in the process of raising, is that's not, that foundation is not solid. Um, so there's the personal side of it, but then there's also I'm like, I have a reputation. I mean, I have a lot of influence over a lot of people. I have a big congregation, and I write a lot of books. I speak a lot. I give interviews on the radio. So
your community sort of really extends outside your current congregation, right?
Yeah. So it's grown and grown and grown over the years. And so there are all these people who look to me for support and inspiration, and as a way to communicate and keep alive, their faith. And so that I feel almost like a fraud, because my livelihood is to some extent bound up with this identity that is no longer me.
Yeah.
And that I don't believe in. My wife works and she makes a good salary, so that's part of what contributes to our household. And we're comfortable, but there's the personal dimension. There's my public persona, that dimension, so that which now feels hollow and so on. So
there's a lot of factors to weigh about how this change is going to unfold.
Yeah.
A lot of.
So it's possible that I could regain it, but it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah, it feels pretty definite.
Yeah.
And may I ask, so you said that it really hasn't been a process of losing faith, but sort of a moment of it being gone. What has the timeline of things been? When did you realize that this was taking place?
So I think what really precipitated it was, and because I guess one way I could put it is, one reason that it hasn't happened until now is that, and this is kind of how my perspective has changed, is that I feel kind of like I was raised in a bubble, and the circles that I moved in, as a young person, when I was in college, and then just starting out my career, the social circles and so on, political circles and so on. It was all kind of like confined. So it was a very supportive environment to grow up in. I had a very happy childhood.
Yeah.
And very supportive family life.
Yeah. But everything was really reinforcing your life as a Baptist.
Yeah. But my youngest brother, actually, he kind of always marched to the beat of his own drummer.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually left. He went away. He moved to the West Coast. And
as a college student? Or?
As a college student, yeah. And my parents, and he wanted to go to a kind of a more secular university. My other brothers and I, we all went to one of the local Christian schools.
Yeah.
But he wanted to go and do his own thing, and that was just anathema to my parents.
Yeah.
and so he worked all the way through college, paid his own way, um, and uh, that split between him and my parents also spilled over a little into a split between he and my brothers. So he was, always kind of the black sheep, and
including you.
Yeah.
You were among.
Yeah. And
tell me, what is his name?
Brian.
Brian. Okay.
And we, and to the point where when we started having our own families, me and my other brothers, we were always a little leery of visiting or having him come and visit because he was, it was like we were afraid of the influence he might have on them, and we felt, I think, kind of betrayed. It seemed like a rejection of what our parents had given us, that he was not appreciating that. So he, but coming back to your question, we actually met up a couple of years ago. I was on a trip to give a talk at a conference out in San Diego, which is near where he lives.
Yeah.
And I decided that it was time to reach out and maybe start to repair things a little bit. So we met and we stayed in touch, and we ended up having the most fascinating conversations, because I think a lot of the emotional stuff that had been kicking around between us, it'd been so many years since that had gone on, and he's now successful. He's married, just had a child.
So he's been pretty happy in his life.
Yeah. He's doing great.
Yeah.
And so it kind of the past was in a way further away, so we were able to connect more as as men, as adults, and we just got talking, and he started to open up about when he left when he was younger, and why he rejected the whole program of our parents and the church and the community, and he went through this period of doubt and anguish of his own, where he just really couldn't believe it.
Yeah. This was before moving to college? Is it what precipitated the move, or is it something that he went through more gradually, sort of in the occasion of...
Yeah, it's something that precipitated when he was in high school. He started reading a lot of books, a lot of philosophy and stuff, and he just started to see Christianity as as false, as hollow, as empty, and as other religions in the same light. So in any case, he went through this process of intellectual development and doubt, and kind of developed his own worldview and value system.
And was it in the way that he told it was a really intellectual process, or was he also reflecting on his thoughts about the community that you grew up in, or his relationship with your parents or the church?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a connection between the two, because he saw the kind of, as I said before, bubble, the kind of bubble that we grew up in. He saw that as hostile to intellectual inquiry and intellectual independence and thinking for oneself, and so he saw that as kind of hollow and superficial, and in the same way, the more he thought for himself, the more he saw, our worldview, our values as empty, as not meriting belief, and as not being an important place in one's life of going to church and participating in the community of faith. So
this is something he was telling you about, recounting to you as you were reconnecting here.
What he went through, and then we were just out late one night and talking, and we got into kind of the you might say the philosophical issues, and I don't know whether it was just a combination of reuniting with him and seeing how he had, become successful and grown up and, found his own way, made his own life, and seemed very happy. And seeing someone who I had loved and grown up with turn out so well, and seeing the merit in, only now seeing the merit and the reasonableness of what he did and why he did it, it just all combined, and that I was kind of out of my element. I was traveling.
So you were visiting him in California again after that first conference where you reconnected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was that combination of factors, like a perfect storm, that it was like something snapped, and I saw something clearly.
Yeah.
And
a light bulb came on?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just became obvious to me that, Christ was a good man, but he wasn't God. It's a story. It's a story that people made up. That's what religions are. They're stories that we make up to tell ourselves, to console ourselves in the face of the aspects of life that we don't want to accept, that we're going to die, that there's no ultimate purpose or reason for our existence. Who knows, right?
So it's something that gives our lives meaning and protects us from some harsh realities, but there might be other ways in which we gain that. And Brian sort of found those in his life. And
it's like there was something admirable about it.
Yeah.
It's being able to confront reality as it is without sugarcoating it, and a kind of honesty. So I guess it was some of the qualities that I felt that he exhibited that I then, I in my own life, I had these conventional markers of success of, I had a beautiful family and a wife. I was considered a leader in my community, and it helped a lot of people through difficult times, and tried to give them a sense of hope and purpose, and a sense of connection. But that the foundation of that was somehow suspect. That I was almost like diluting them and perpetuating what seems like a kind of like a lie. So I don't know how to. I mean, I'm still kind of grappling with that. I guess the emotional fallout of that, of having built so much of my life, my family's life, on that foundation. But then also what do I do? How can I persist in this? Yeah. And if I can't, then how do I unwind that? Because it's not just, it's not just a job. It's also, and it's not just a family. It's also the role that I play in
sustaining a community of belief.
Yes, exactly. It's a great way to put it.
So you offer this foundation to other people in a way, but now the foundation is gone for you. So what are you standing on?
Yeah.
Is it something that, can you stand without it? Is it right to do that? Is it even possible? It sounds like these are some of the questions that you're weighing.
Yeah.
Or is it time to, make a big change?
Yeah. So that was what was, and that's one of the reasons that I reached out, because I feel like there's no one in that community who can help me through this.
Yeah.
Because it's outside of, because I feel like where I need to go is somewhere outside of this community.
Well, it sounds like having someone involved who can help you weigh the different perspectives now that you're working between, in a sort of more impartial fashion could be really useful. Um, do you feel like that's what it is that you're looking for?
Is what specifically?
Someone who can really help you kind of evaluate, what is your relationship now to this, you know, to the Baptist community, to your church, and, your wife and your kids as people of faith, and then also to, this new perspective that you're gaining to your brother, and help you weigh, how do you negotiate between them? What questions do you have to ask to make some of the decisions that you're trying to make? So sort of an impartial observer, someone who can help you look at both sides.
Yeah.
Does that feel like what you're seeking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just, I think, to try and help me imagine or start to reimagine what my life would look like post this this break, this change, because it's so.
Sounds pretty profound.
Yeah. I mean, and to some extent, I feel like I can call on my, on Christian teaching, and Christian symbols to help me wade through this, because I feel like to some extent it it's like the cure, the poison is the cure, or whatever that saying is, right? That I think that it's only through attaining a kind of a creative relationship to that tradition that I can move past it. There's aspects of it that I think are important. So maybe helping me figure out what I can hold on to, and what I have already let go of, what I can't get back, and so how to, I guess, reimagine what my life would be like with the help of aspects of that tradition. Because it seems to involve a kind of rebirth that I am in the process of going through. So how to do that in a way that is not as little destructive to myself and to my family and to the community that I
and that might even
served.
Be constructive for all of you, potentially. Just to back up a few steps for a moment, so I can feel like I have a kind of a clear picture of what's taken place. So you got in touch with your brother. You started having these conversations and hearing about his process, sort of leaving the faith and figuring out his view of the world. A lot of that resonated with you, and you found yourself having a similar kind of realization, and now sort of transition into a new way of seeing things. That's left you feeling a little bit without a foundation. Do you feel like before that conversation there were things going on in your thoughts, or anything that had happened that had shaken things for you a little bit? Were some of these questions already there?
I mean, it's not like it completely came out of the blue. I mean, I'm a reasonably intelligent guy. I mean, I may be a Baptist preacher, but I've heard the other side before. I know there's atheism, and I know there's agnostic. I know there's a whole panoply of belief. And I had studied some of that, when I was in college, and when I was, in training to become a pastor. So I was acquainted with, the other side of the aisle, as it were. But I think I never really seriously considered alternatives. They were always considered in a kind of academic sense.
Yeah.
It was like we already knew what the truth was. But I think it was the meeting with my brothers because of, it's not the message but who is delivering it, because it was coming from him, somebody who was family.
And you said you really feel love for him. You did as a growing up, and you continue to, even though he was the black sheep.
Yeah, and that was something. It's good that you mentioned that, because that was something that I really realized more when I went to visit him, and then after our conversation, and then how I felt after it, was that even when I was younger, I was more just, the way in which I and my brothers had kind of ostracized him. We were more just kind of aping our parents' reactions, and that was kind of one of the reasons that my brother shunned the community initially, was there was a kind of like a groupthink and you're with us, you're against us kind of, or you're against us kind of mentality.
Yeah.
So I realized more in retrospect that I wasn't really paying attention to my feelings for him at that time when we were younger. I was more just doing what I thought we were supposed to do, because that's what he was pushing us away. So,
but there was some loss that you felt, even though there was some agreement that
and I think it was
outside the group.
Yeah, and I think it was because there were 4 of us.
Yeah.
So it was, I think, easier at the time to not be as concerned or attentive that he was off doing his own thing. There was, and our family was so tightly knit that those feelings I had for him kind of got subsumed by the rest of the family.
Yeah, your loyalties to them, and your love for them, and your relationship.
Yeah, exactly. But it was hearing it from him, and hearing about his own process of finding his own way outside of the bubble. That was what I think really made me face that, for the possibility that the other side, didn't just have something important to say, but was more right.
Yeah. So it opened up, you were just saying, a possibility, and gave you some new terrain on which to stand and look at things in potentially a new way.
Yeah, and it's like kind of like I feel like I was ripe for it, because everything is, I've been so blessed in my life, and everything has just gone so well, and I have this great congregation, and I've people. It's I mean that's one of the tricky things with being a preacher, is you're supposed to have your focus on God, but as a human being, right, we love attention, right? We love people caring about what we say, and so in my speaking, in my writing, having people pay attention to that, it's a good feeling.
Rewarding. Yeah.
It's rewarding, and particularly if it's inspiring people, and giving them a sense of hope, and getting them excited about their lives. So that's a very empowering thing to do, and so it's like everything was just coasting along, just peachy keen, and then I met him out there, and it was like the bubble was pricked.
Yeah.
It was like the perfect world. And then I met him, and then it all
suddenly there's this whole
popped.
New horizon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was You know, I almost want to say it was like a religious conversion.
Yeah.
um, but so
And now you're in the next stage.
yeah,
And it sounds like there really is a lot of really serious questions that are weighing on your mind right now about how to relate and what steps to take
yeah,
in the wake of this.
yeah.
And so that's what brought you here, to begin kind of talking those things through. And
Yeah, and really like I mean that's a good way to put it, to begin to talk these things through, because other than my brother, I haven't told this to anyone, because almost literally everyone in my social network is, you know, part of the flock, part of the the community. So
it has been your total community here.
yes, yeah. So I think that's part of why I came here, is to, even though my brother is outside that community, he's still he's still family. So I wanted to try and get the perspective of someone who's outside to help me work through some of this stuff.
And so you've shared your thinking with him, and are you staying in regular touch with him right now by phone or?
Yeah, we talk every few weeks by phone. So that's been great. The formation of that new relationship. He's been kind of a lifeline for me to the the outside world, as it were. So.
And now, has he? When you went to California, was this your first time seeing him for a number of years? Has he been accepted back all into the family before that? Is he relating to them much? Has he met your wife? Or?
No, he is. We hadn't seen each other for probably around 5-6 years.
Okay. And the contact before that was?
It was sporadic.
Kind of routine,
yeah, Christmas cards, emails, that kind of stuff. And he hasn't been back much, back east much. So it was just kind of a spur of the moment. Not spur of the moment, but I just happened to be going to San Diego, so I said, well, why not? And he had, recently, gotten married, just, a year or two before that. So, I felt like that was, important to meet up with them, and and I know that he and our dad are not that close, so I figured that as an older brother that could be helpful for him,
in this moment of a lot of change for him as well.
Yeah.
Being a family. So it sounds like these two big influences in your life now, it feels appropriate in a way that he's on the West Coast, because it feels like there's a big gulf that you're standing in.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't put it quite that way before. Yeah, but it's very, right, and California has that kind of mythology about it, so,
quite different than Georgia.
Yeah.
David, I'm just going to look at the time that we're at. Uh-oh. Right. We're at 34 minutes, so this is to David, so should we try to just wrap up the session and maybe talk about, in one way it feels like you've already sort of shared a goal, but I'm just gonna
I mean, we could cut it. I think we're probably good.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is definitely a character we have to